This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, May 19th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News digital edition starts right now. Hi there, and thank you for joining us. He announced he was stepping down as Saskatchewan NDP leader in February, and today Ryan Miley says he will be stepping away from the legislature altogether. Adam Hunter has the details.
Ryan Meili had been non-committal about his future as the MLA for Saskatoon Meewasin, but today he made his decision to leave politics official.
A number of these guests are here to say hello and goodbye to me in my role as MLA for Saskatoon Meewasin and leader of the opposition. As on July 1st, it will be my final day in this seat, and I'm very pleased to be able to welcome some of these good friends and family.
Meili became MLA for Saskatoon Meewasin in 2017 and won the party leadership in 2018 after two previously unsuccessful attempts. It's that perseverance that's been noticed by Premier Scott Moe.
He did live true to his beliefs. Whether we agreed on those beliefs or not, he most certainly did live to them, and he stood by them. And those two traits, perseverance and being true to the beliefs that you have, I think are admirable in any individual, even when you might not agree totally with what those might be. I think you can respect the fact that someone is doing that, and Ryan Meili most certainly did do that.
Meili served longer than the previous two NDP leaders, but could not lead the party to a breakthrough in the 2020 election. He says looking back, he would have changed being the leader of the constant criticism of the government. He says his advice for the next leader is to balance that criticism with showing the party's positive vision for Saskatchewan. Overall, he says he's happy with his decision.
It is time for me to move on and do other things, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have been the leader of the NDP, to have been leader of the opposition, to be a doctor leading in the middle of a pandemic. It's been the challenge, an opportunity, and honor of a lifetime.
A doctor by profession, Meili says he plans to stay working in the field of medicine. His last day as MLA and leader is July 1st. The government has 6 months from that day to hold a by-election to fill Meili's seat. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
Before his resignation yesterday, Ryan Miley raised the issue of mental health support in Saskatchewan emergency rooms in question period. He introduced Janice Rathgeber. She struggles with mental health issues and was frustrated by long waits to see a doctor and to receive medication in a recent trip to the emergency room. Rathgeber says despite waiting, she received excellent care. But she thinks the government and the SHA need to restructure how patients are dealing with mental health emergencies are treated. She raised the death of Samuel Ugo, who died in 2020. Ugo drowned in Wascana Lake. Prior to his death, he had sought help at the Regina General Hospital.
The system has to change. And the Saskatchewan Party says, well, they're building a urgent care facility that will have a mental health unit there, but it's been 2 years since Samuel died, and nothing has changed.
Rathgeber says the province need to have psychiatrists and registered psychiatric nurses available in hospital emergency rooms 24/7. A man who attended a private boarding school in Saskatchewan in the 1980s says he was traumatized by what happened there. He says hazing was rampant at the school, and now he's sharing his story to push for accountability and to help others. Kendall Latimer reports.
When Todd Tisdale was growing up in Saskatchewan, he had big dreams about playing hockey.
I wanted to pursue a hockey career for sure. I wasn't the greatest hockey player, but I thought I could eke out an existence in the SJHL or something lower than that.
So he took a shot on a private boarding school in Wilcox, Saskatchewan, Notre Dame, known for its prestigious hockey program. In 1986, he was accepted as a student, but when he got to school, his ambition began to crumble. He says the older students in his dormitory began hazing him.
It started out with things like simple things like getting a pizza pop for an older boy or getting a chocolate milk for an older boy. But it turned into abusive things like having to give them a massage, very sexual in a way. I also had to eat some craft dinner that was cooked in urine.
Tisdale says the abuse became more sexual and violent.
I was choked by another student until I passed out and laid there on the floor until I came to. And we were made to have a tug of war with our privates until one of our backs hit the wall. Now, the person whose wall hit the back was declared the winner, and they were allowed to go. And the person who lost the, whatever you want to call it, the fight or the tug of war, had to endure more of that abuse.
Tisdale went to see his girlfriend for support and says the school then expelled him for leaving without permission. He says feelings of mental distress have lasted decades.
I probably buried them from the time I was 16 till I was 24. I had a fairly significant nervous breakdown when I was 24. You know, I struggle with trust. I struggle with relationships. I struggle with employment. I struggle with, dealing with trauma.
Tisdale says he wrote to the school asking for an apology in the 1990s, but he never got one. So years later, he filed a lawsuit. It's still ongoing. He's accusing the college of being negligent, alleging it failed to provide proper supervision and failed to protect Tisdale, who was a minor at the time.
For them to be accountable, I had to do this lawsuit. It's not a fun process. It's slow going, and it's not fun to hash things up over and over again. But Notre Dame has to be accountable for what happened.
In a statement of defense, the college denies each and every allegation by Tisdale. Last month, Tisdale added a second defendant to his claim, a man who was also a student at the time and, according to Tisdale, was responsible for some of the abuse. The person has not yet filed a statement of defense. And while Tisdale is seeking accountability in court, he's also set a personal goal. It's been more than 3 decades since his time at boarding school. He worries violent hazing is still happening and wants institutions to make it stop.
It's very important to talk about this. It's a hockey culture thing. It's not just a Notre Dame thing.
Kendall Latimer, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Let's take a look at the latest Saskatchewan COVID-19 data. The government is out with its latest weekly situation report. It reflects what happened from May 8th to 14th, with the exception of hospitalizations. There are 22 new deaths to report. 14 people died during the reporting period. Another 8 deaths happened over the last 6 months, but were just recently recorded. And one of the people who died was 19 years old or younger. The pandemic death toll now sits at 1,364. As of yesterday, 270 people with COVID-19 are in Saskatchewan hospitals. That is 51 fewer patients compared to last week. 14 people are under intensive care. The next steps for a downtown Regina building with connections to Louis Riel are once again delayed. City Council decided at its meeting yesterday to postpone talks of demolishing the Burns-Hanley building. It sits on the site of the old St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church, where Louis Riel's body was briefly kept after his execution in 1885. Council is weighing 2 options. It can either demolish the building but preserve its historic facade, or the city can hire Harvard Developments to repair the building for an estimated $6 million. Mayor Sandra Masters says the topic fuels debate amongst council, which shows it's being taken seriously.
And deconstructing and reconstructing the facade isn't heritage conservation. There are many individuals who believe it is, and there are clearly individuals who believe it's not. And I think you're seeing that difference in philosophy about heritage conservation playing itself out.
Regina City Council is set to discuss the Burns-Hanley building's future when it meets next month. A Saskatoon artist has found a way to lift the spirits of Ukrainian people in the city through fabric postcards. They were created by Monica Kinner and others across North America. Kinner then delivers them to the Ukrainian Museum of Canada, where they're sold to raise money and goodwill.
The people here in Canada, and the Ukrainian people here, even though they're not under threat of being bombed, they're still victims of the war. They really are. Like, the ripples from the war affect all the Ukrainian people everywhere.
The museum's executive director says more than $500 has been raised so far. The money will go to the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. Kinner says people can donate their own fabric postcards to the project. Well, it's back to work for the CFL after a 4-day strike. The league and the Players Association reached a 7-year tentative agreement last night. It just needs to be ratified. Meanwhile, the teams are either resuming or kicking off their respective training camps. The Rough Riders originally planned their first walkthrough tonight at Griffith Stadium in Saskatoon, but with the rainy weather, that's been moved inside to a gym at the U of S. Regular camp routine should get underway tomorrow morning outside at Griffith Stadium. Also, the team's preseason opener has been rescheduled. They'll now take on Winnipeg about a week later on Tuesday, May 31st. Kickoff is at 6:30 p.m. at Mosaic Stadium. May Long weekend is almost upon us, and we know that's the weekend when the urban planting really starts in Saskatchewan. Joining us now for some tips and tricks is soil scientist Ashley Essikin from Gardening in Canada. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Let's start with garden bed prep. We had a really dry summer last year. Where should we start?
So it is incredibly dry, despite the fact that it seems like we're getting a ton of moisture right now. So I would encourage everyone to actually look into some form of mulch. This can be in a grass cycling form, such as cutting the lawn and then using the lawn clippings to help retain moisture, using wood chips, straw, anything of that nature. It's going to cut down on the water bill and it's going to save your garden. So that is my number one tip for this year due to the lack of soil moisture that we have right now.
I grew up in a direct seed sowing house. We bought the packages, you put the seeds in the ground, some water, hope they do their thing. Is there a best way to seed sow?
So one of the really great ways to do this is to actually get a piece of wood or a plastic marker and put a measuring tape on it and mark out your distances or your depths to actually see that. And this is going to help you very quickly determine how deep you need to sow your seeds. When in doubt, you always want to sow a little less in depth than what the seed package is telling you, because we need them to reach the light in the amount of time that they have allocated based on that seed. Things that are smaller in size, like lettuce seeds, actually need a little bit of sun in order to germinate. So if you broadcast those along the top of the soil surface and then use a light dusting of compost, that's going to give you the best results. And remember, you need to read back the packages. If it says thin, then you need to thin those seeds to get the proper bulk of the plant to grow. And plants that fall under this category are radishes, beets, carrots, lettuce, things of that nature.
Some people have already started their flowers and fruits and veggies indoors. What's the best way to transplant those outside and when?
Yeah, so here in Saskatchewan, we have a last frost date in some cases that can go as late as June 10th, and that's for most of us here in Saskatoon. So I encourage you to look up your last frost date and then plant after that time. A general rule of thumb, particularly because our springs aren't necessarily always following the same pattern, we want to aim for our nighttime temperatures to be above 10 degrees Celsius. So when our nighttime temps are above 10 degrees Celsius, it means we're pretty good to actually sow or transplant outdoors. You, of course, want to harden your plants off for approximately 1 to 2 weeks prior to transplanting them outdoors to prevent things like transplant shock and sunburn. My fair skin is very sensitive to this, so I know how plants feel. Now, keep in mind, when you do transplant outside, you should be using something like recycled containers, 5-gallon pail buckets with holes cut in the bottom, or milk jugs, which we've shown on the CBC Instagram and TikTok to actually protect that plant from high winds, too much moisture, and just the elements in general, and you should be okay. Another hack you can try that's going to help you enormously is actually solarizing the soil and warming it up. So remove the mulch from the top of the soil and use a plastic film to place on top of the soil surface for the next week or so. Really get the heat temperatures up in that soil, and that will reduce transplant shock just in general.
Ashley, thanks so much for the tips and tricks.
No problem, anytime.
Ashley Essikin is a soil scientist based out of Saskatoon. You can find more tips and tricks on Instagram and YouTube. Just look up Gardening in Canada.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. The exclusive export event is back.
And Ethan Williams joins me now with a look at your forecast. The weather you got today depended on the minute you were outside. Mother Nature just could not make up her mind.
Yeah, pick a weather phenomenon, and you probably had it today in the province, Sam. We had all sorts of weird stuff, from storms to rain to snow. And Daryl out at Wynyard says season's greetings to everyone, because it looked a little bit like Christmas there today. Some highways in the area around Wynyard and Humboldt were showing winter driving conditions too. And some white stuff of a different kind in Regina. This is what I'm talking about. We got hail here this afternoon. Environment Canada meteorologist Terry Lang has a sister who lives here, and she sent us this photo of pea to marble-sized hail, which fell through the city. And this wild weather is going to continue tonight. We have general showers this evening through much of the province, and we have that snow, of course, that hit the east central part of the province this afternoon. That's going to move into the southeast to places like Yorkton and Weyburn and Estevan. Even Regina down toward Assiniboia, Gravelbourg could get that too. By tomorrow, we'll see mostly cloudy conditions. We could have some scattered flurries in the morning and early afternoon, and maybe some rain showers in there too. We get to tomorrow evening and things do start to clear. We get some sunny breaks, and then by Saturday, it looks like much of the province will get rid of the rain and snow, and we will actually see some sun on Saturday. Now, until midnight tonight, here's how much more rain we're expecting. These amounts could be a little high in Yorkton and Moosomin, but 5-10 millimeters maybe in some areas, a couple of millimeters more in Saskatoon. I think for the central part of the province tonight, much of the rain will be gone. Not much more as we move through tomorrow, though. In terms of snow, a few centimeters possible, especially in the Yorkton-Melville area. 1 or 2 possible in places like Regina and Moose Jaw and Assiniboia. Not too much more as we go through tomorrow, though, which is good. Now, it was a very windy day, especially in the southwest, and those gusts are going to continue, and they'll move into the southeast tonight, gusts between 50-60 kilometers an hour. They'll be with us all tomorrow, pretty much through the entire province. And then Saturday, we do get a break, save for the very far north of the province. Stony Rapids reporting some pretty high gusts. Now, all this wind, these cold temperatures, I really didn't think I was going to be using this board again this spring, but we could see some cool wind chills. We're looking at wind chills possibly down to -10 tonight, especially in that central part of the province where winds will gust the highest out of the north, pulling that cool air down. Could be chilly as you get up tomorrow morning. In Regina for the next 7 days, we are looking at a very cool 6 degrees tomorrow. Again, rain or snow possible, but not much in the way of precipitation. Saturday, I think we will get some clearing conditions. We'll only be at 10 degrees, and then the warm-up begins Sunday. Mix of sun and cloud on Sunday. We could see showers again on Monday, but temperatures from there generally more seasonal, or at least getting there. Similar day to Regina in Saskatoon tomorrow. Rain or snow, 6 degrees. It's 13 on Saturday, a little warmer than Regina. And then Sunday, Monday, last 2 days of that holiday weekend, I think will be the best 2 days that we get. The rain could return on Tuesday and Thursday. And Sam, I've pretty much all just about given up on predicting what's coming now. I'm scared to say what's coming next, but hopefully I can redeem myself this weekend.
Cool overnight lows, but that's actually a pretty great forecast, all things considered.
Not bad.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And before we leave you, it is a big week for Regina-born boxer. Tamara Thibault will compete for gold at the IBA Women's World Championship in Istanbul tomorrow.
The winner on points by unanimous decision is the boxer out of the red corner from Canada, Tamara Thibault.
Yesterday, the 26-year-old beat out Mozambique's contender in the middleweight division. Thibault will face Athenia Bailon of Panama in the final. The IBA World Championship is big money for Thibault. If she wins gold, she pockets $100,000 US. Silver gets her $50,000. We'll be watching. That is it for us today. For News Anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.